Testing. Blah, 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 blah.
Ready, set, go.
It's time for the Coach Amy and Coach Liz show.
A podcast for endurance athletes by two athletes, two coaches, and a physical therapist.
We are your hosts, Coach Amy
And Coach Liz.
coming to you from
Kansas City.
Welcome home from your
you.
trip to Morocco, your running trip.
Yes.
I think our listeners will love to hear about your experience. How was it?
It was amazing. I feel so lucky to have gotten to go. And, I feel like I got a lot of questions before we went about the fact that there was an earthquake there. That was a pretty massive earthquake not long before we went. And, so the trip, we weren't sure that we were going to be able to go, but I really appreciated the company we went with, which was Rogue Adventures. Rogue Expedition, sorry. They were really good they built really solid partnerships with people on the ground. And so a lot of the people that sort of led our group were people who were from Morocco. And so they'd done a lot of really good work about whether or not, it was appropriate for our group to go and to be respectful and that kind of stuff. And so really the response was they'd already had this huge, natural disaster and they didn't want an economic disaster. And when we were there was, repairs going on and everything, but life felt very much like it had proceeded. And the areas that we were, there wasn't a lot of damage from the earthquake. So it felt like it was okay to go.
And the expedition itself brings money into Morocco, so it's going to help with those efforts in an indirect way. Yeah. And so you felt better about
it. So and it was nice because you kind of feel
you weren't traipsing around all over Morocco.
Right? You didn't want to be like, oh, sorry, you just had this horrendous thing happen, but I'm on vacation in the United States. So it wasn't like that at all, which I appreciated.
Yeah. What was so when I looked at I think it was like Facebook or Instagram or something like that, you had some a little collage of pictures of, and we'll probably include this in the podcast somewhere on our show notes or something so that everyone can see it who's maybe not a Facebook friend. And they're just some amazing pictures of the trip where you really were, it wasn't like you were just running around Morocco and looking at the sights. You were kind of in the culture. You got to experience the culture, which I think is just an amazing benefit of that.
Well,
trip.
Yeah. And because I've traveled quite a bit. And when I was younger, I did it on a shoestring, I would go and I'd have my little guidebook and my backpack and I figured everything out by myself. And there's an element of stress that comes with that. And so I've kind of learned that, if you can squirrel away the savings to go with somebody who really can guide you through the culture. And our guides were they took us into their family homes and they're amazing. Part of the community. And when the company that we went with is a US based company, but when they're not there in Morocco doing a tour, everybody who is helping us has their own business in Morocco. They live in Morocco, they're, and so they really are, they really are part of the communities and the cultures. And so you do. You learn a lot more. They can help you understand how to be respectful about how you travel. And then, kind of explain everything that's going on. Where the influence of the architecture comes from. The tile work there is just
the pictures were amazing.
And
I'm sure it didn't do it justice.
I didn't.
Right.
I was obsessed. I kept videotaping. I'm why am I videotaping the wall? But it's amazing. It's really cool.
Oh, that's so awesome. I'm envious in a way because I don't have that adventurous spirit. When I was really, really little, I was born in Germany and I've traveled around Europe with my parents. I was one. I don't remember any of it. And I haven't, other than a trip to Mexico for my honeymoon, I haven't been out of the United States. Yeah. And I think it takes, it sounds amazing, but at the same time, gives me a ton of anxiety to even think about it.
Well, I will say I was surprised because, we had this group and they're 12, it was 12 people. So I feel like it's a pretty small group. And, we would do a run every morning. And then in the afternoon, you had the option to kind of, go and explore, do different things. So it was a nice combination of being able to run and see cool things that way. And then also, have some other experiences. But there were people in our group who weren't runners, and I got to talk about.
I was going to ask you about that.
Talk about props, and we literally.
Why did they go on a running trip if they're not runners?
I was
they're not runners at all.
No.
Oh,
and
what?
I was that takes some chutzpah. Would I ever look at it and be I should go on a running travel adventure in Morocco, and I don't run. No, but
That's bizarre. So did they walk?
Well, so some of them walked, and some of them like would ride. So they would leapfrog like along the course, so that you would have water. I mean, they were amazing at making sure you know
wonderful.
where you're going.
I
and
imagined you just dropped off in the middle of the desert and go fend for yourself like an adventure,
girl.
like those adventure sport things.
No joke. Last year, I got lost on the Indian Creek Trail. I run there every day.
So you were well supported.
Oh, the support. Like, you couldn't have gotten lost. And, they have water, like, every mile. I mean, it's amazing.
Okay,
like,
let me ask you this.
Yes.
So did you, I'm assuming you did some research about the company before you signed up. Yeah. And it was really clear that all that was going to be provided for you? Or did you just,
No. I know. So
I could see you doing something like, what's the worst that could happen?
I feel like my athletes right now are probably like, Liz, are you sure? Because some of the places that I have, I don't have.
I'll did a good job researching,
and it was safe. It wasn't like an accidental halfway house. No, we stayed in the nicest places I've ever stayed in. I'm like, how do you even get this in? Like, your hours from stuff, and they did such a nice job, and it was really, especially because the trip. There's a lot going on in the world right now, and the war with Hamas and Israel was fairly new. You're flying to an area of the country that could be affected by that, and so I was just really appreciated. I mean, it was so safe. It was so well supported. It was so well organized. And, honestly, the thing that I really appreciated is their focus was on, like, it didn't matter if you were, like, a super good runner or if you were literally there to, like,
well, clearly not even a runner. Yeah.
No, I know. And so but it was so welcoming. I mean, and it was safe. I just cannot.
So how far did you run every day?
So I usually.
Oh no!
No.
Do as I say.
No.
What'd you do?
Because I had trained for this.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we ended up at 11 or 12 miles most days.
Okay, and was it like you would run along and then kind of stop and look at things, or did you just run and then the whole distance and then stop and look at things? Well, I'm trying to picture this in my head.
I know. Well, so it would be like, some days there were like really amazing things to see, and so. You would, some days it would take you like, 3 hours to do that. And you would stop and take pictures and like you would go through, like it was really scenic. And then there were some days where it was more like much more just like our last day we kind of ran through like, it was almost like a riverbed and there wasn't a whole heck of a lot to see. So you could just kind of put your head down, and run. But it wasn't about the running, right? And I did a bike tour through Cuba a few years ago, and it just has taught me that like biking and running allow you to get into communities in ways that are just like, it's so much less invasive and people are kind of curious about you and you're not like stuck in your car or like on a big bus where you're just kind of going through and looking at things like as a zoo. And then you've got guides there that are kind of, just smoothing over that sort of the relations there. Like, I know both of you and both groups are safe and you can say hello. And so you just...
Well, and you get to experience like the nature and the environment and you get to cover a lot more ground.
You do.
Obviously, bike covers more ground than the run, but run more than a hike.
For sure.
So it's like, you hear about these people that come back from their vacation. I had 32,000 steps, around Paris and you're like, yay, that's so good for you. And if you had run or biked it, you would have even covered, way more ground. So that's kind of a fun benefit of that trip that you took. So would you say that, you said some people kind of leapfrog because they weren't even running at all. What if you were like, I'm going to run 5 miles each day or 6 miles each day? You would just get to a point and they would pick you up and then
you could
take
go
you the rest of the way. Okay.
Yeah. So it was really, it was really about supporting what each person needed.
Was able to do and wanted to do.
Yes. And, and the focus was really on like, we're here to travel and have fun. And, really the type of people that tend to sign up for a trip like that are, adventurous. So, they rolled with it and it was just a really fun group. It's, there were a couple people who were super intense about their running, but most of us, it was really, you're there to travel.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. Okay, so what was your absolute 100% favorite thing from the trip? The biggest takeaway for you?
Oh my gosh. I just really loved being able to run through places that you wouldn't normally be able to see. So you're running through like communities. And so you get to see like sort of everyday life stuff, which is what I find fascinating when you travel. I mean, it just...
Rather than signing up for some sort of like museum tour or something like that.
Yeah, okay. And you just get to see like,
how
do they do their laundry, or how do they cook, or, what is like... what are their front door, like the front doors, we were running through these communities, and, they're all built out of like, sort of like a sand substance. And so it's a very sort of brown, but then these doors are beautiful and they're painted with all these colors and intricate designs. And so you would just get to see the human side of stuff in a way that is just that's what I want to know about,
Yeah, that's really so cool.
Yeah.
Okay, so if our listeners are interested in either, because I was looking into that bike adventure thing because I got a pamphlet in the mail. I don't know how I got that. Somebody was listening to me on the interwebs or something. But anyway, it shows up and I'm like, ooh, this is so interesting. But I was like, ooh, do I trust this company? Or, so whether it's a bike or a run adventure, what do you recommend for people who have never done anything like that before? Yeah. What do you recommend? What are the steps or process that they should go through?
Well, so you might start with like, there's different... I would start with a country that maybe you feel a little bit more comfortable with. Like Morocco was like... that's someplace that I'd wanted to go for a really long time. And like, I knew it was safe, but I feel like for somebody who maybe hasn't traveled a lot, that seems like a lot.
That wouldn't be the first step.
Well, it wouldn't, right? Because you don't want, you want it to be a good experience and to find out if you even like to travel. And so like, this company, they have got tours in Ireland. There's some places like, say, want to maybe go to Europe first and get some, some experience there. There's amazing things to see there, and like find out, like, do you like travel? Do you like this company? What kind of travel? I mean, do you want to go on a shoestring and figure it out for yourself? Do you want to go on a luxury something? Do you want to go on something that, where there's a little bit more adventure? I mean, National Geographic has some great tours you can look on and see. So there's companies that specialize. And so you figure out like, where do you feel safe going? What kind do you want to have, like adventure, and what kind of adventure do you want all inclusive? So, think about some parameters before you go that you feel comfortable with, and then go and test it out. And then, kind of decide from there, like, do you want a little more adventure? Do you want a little bit less? Did you like the company? And then, maybe you liked Europe, and so maybe you want to go to Eastern Europe, which is a little bit, maybe feels a little more foreign, or maybe you want to go to some places in like South America or Central America, and maybe you start with Costa Rica or Ecuador that, are well-traveled. A lot of people go. They're known to be safe, some places like that. And then, just increase your risk-taking if you're comfortable with that. You know?
So you mentioned National Geographic. So they actually have like run and cycling trips through National Geographic, or is that would just be like a trip?
Well, so they go lots of different places, and you can get on their site and like they have sailing trips, or they have biking trips, or they have kayaking trips.
I did not know this.
Yes. I mean, so there's companies that do, there's a couple other ones. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't remember the one. It's like I can't remember it, but there's travel adventure companies. And so if you look, you can find ones. And then I usually get a recommendation from somebody. So, somebody who's already gone. This company was one, I've gotten their newsletter for a long time. We read their book. And then, the owner of the company, they're based out of Austin, and he was there when we landed, and like, they spent years building the relationships. And so, you want to do your due diligence. And I think that getting a recommendation from people is probably a good idea. But I, start with something that feels like slightly risky, but you're comfortable with, and don't just, because you want to go enjoy it, right? You don't want to be like chewing off your fingernails trying to decide if you even want to go.
Well, okay. So I recently had this run where I swear in my head, so it was Indian Creek Trail, like I'm really comfortable, familiar with it, right?
Yeah.
Like all the time.
Yeah.
And when I started, there was this truck, and I was like, this person seems to be like hanging out there with their car on, like, and I didn't like it, and it weirded me out. So then I pretended like I was running one direction, then I went back the other way, and then I noticed at the next area where the Indian Creek Trail hits another parking area, that truck was there. And I know. And I mean, this was like a little 3-4 mile run in the morning. And my little alarm bells went off.
Yeah.
And I hated the rest of that run.
Yeah.
I literally recorded on my phone. I hit video and recorded with my phone facing out. So if I ran across anybody, it would be on video. At least if I was killed, my killer would be on my gosh. Which is so stupid. And I probably went a little crazy in my head. But I was also had those alarm bells go off. And but I could see if you're not prepared for that adventure run or bike, and you get yourself in an uncomfortable position because you didn't ease into it like you're recommending, you would spend the entire time feeling really, really kind of upset and stressed, and that will just ruin.
Well, it's interesting you bring that up because, I have traveled quite a bit, and I had backpacked through South America, and I was with a group, and we went all over the place, but I was with other people, and we were there for a couple months, and it was great. And then a few years later, I went by myself, and I went through Southeast Asia, and that was there was a level of stress of traveling by yourself that, you're on a shoestring, or I was at that time, and you're just exposed in a different way than you are even if you're with one other person. And you're right about that. I enjoyed my time there, but it was really stressful. I remember being sort of stressed because, Malaysia is a secular country, but it's Muslim. And so I stuck out a lot, and I was by myself, and it was so safe. I know.
Levi is giving inputs into this podcast.
I was so safe and people were so kind, but there is a level of exposure when you're by yourself that just comes. And I have now, I really enjoyed this last trip I went because I didn't have to worry about that. And the other thing to think about is language. So if you go someplace where you do or you don't speak the language, it's really a big deal. So our guide spoke, there's multiple languages in Morocco, and they spoke the languages. And so it was just allowed us to have those communications without trying to fumble through not being able to speak the language. And then you get so much more out of it, because it's somebody's this is what's going on in front of you, rather than you're standing there and you can't communicate and you don't know how to get places. And so it just, you're right. You don't want to go do something where you're so anxious that you can't enjoy it.
Right.
And so pick, whatever it is, and then you can go from there.
Yeah.
Oh,
such good advice.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys, have you been on an adventure
that you would recommend?
Cycling or run trip?
Or sail or kayak?
Oh, yeah. Any triathloning?
Triathloning, oh gosh.
Triathloning.
Oh my gosh, so, adventure racing.
We want to hear where you guys have been. What are you thinking about?
Yeah. And the people I went with, I'll give them a little plug because I feel like they're a great company. Rogue Expeditions. They're based out of Austin. They have a book, and they go lots of places. So you don't have to go to Morocco.
I'm sure they have a website. We could include
they
in
definitely
the show
have a
notes.
website.
So we'll include that in case you guys want to help
That'd
looking that up.
Thanks so much for listening, and remember,
we are in this together.
Until next time.